Hello and welcome to the class called Speaking Mathanese. Obviously, it's a play on words. Mathanese is not really a language, but for a lot of children and adults alike, math is kind of like a foreign language. When they're in school and they're young, they learn adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing, and they don't really understand why they're learning it. Many times when I've worked with kids, they've said, oh yeah, we've learned all of those things, but I don't really get it. Why am I learning how to add? Why am I learning to subtract, etc.? And I guess my answer to you would be that throughout your life, when you're doing anything, you're going to be using math. You're going to have to figure things out. For example, if you have children when you get older and you decide you're going to have a birthday party, you're going to have to figure out how many favors to buy, how many boxes of juice, how many ice cream servings, whatever it is that you're going to buy. You have to be able to use the math that you're learning now in your elementary and middle school years, and you'll use that so that you can make good choices and good decisions. So what I like to do is kind of talk to kids about how to translate the language of English into math symbols and equations. So I'd like to show you a worksheet that you can print out so that you can use it throughout this course. I'll show you part of it at a time, but we have words and phrases to math symbols. If we are adding, you might see the word plus or and, or a total of, altogether, combined, together, increased by, add, some, more than, added to, in all, or make. Let's look at an example of that. If we have the sentence, there are 24 girls and 18 boys in 5th grade. We have some information here. I used, instead of using the letters TWENTY-FOUR for 24, I used the symbol 24. You learned how to use numbers when you were really little, and you probably had board books and different games that you did, maybe some songs you sang to learn how to count. 5th grade, you understand that. You probably could read this Mathanese without any problems. Where the problem comes in for a lot of people is when we ask the question. So if I said, how many students are there altogether in 5th grade? So when we have that question, we need to stop and say, what is it that they're asking? And what makes sense? Basically, there are 4 different things. We can add, we can subtract, we can multiply, and we can divide. I think everyone understands those symbols because you've seen them over and over and over again. Here we're asking, we have 24 girls, we have 18 boys in 5th grade. How many are there all together? You might remember altogether was one of those words that indicates that we're going to add. But now you have to figure out, am I adding 24 and 18, 24 and 5, 5 and 18, 24, 18, and 5. So you have to really stop and say what makes sense. You have to think, okay, students are made up of girls and boys. So I need to know how many girls plus how many boys equals total number of students. Total number. So I had 24 girls. I had 18 boys. I would add those. And I would say there are 42 students in all. Now that's usually a really typical question that kids will see in their math books, like how many in all. And I think for the most part, it makes sense to you. It wouldn't make any sense to add the 5 for 5th grade. Let's look now at some of the words and phrases for subtraction. Again, you see that fraction sign, just like we saw the addition sign. Words that you might hear for subtraction would be subtract, gave, take away, decrease by, fewer, minus, shared, fewer than, less than, difference, or simply less. So let's look at another story problem. That's going to show through. Let me try a different one. Sorry about that. So if we had that same information about the 24 boys and the 24 girls and 18 boys in 5th grade, we could make another question. We could say, how many fewer boys are there than girls in 5th grade? So if we're looking at that, we would look and we'd say how many fewer we're going to subtract. There are fewer boys, so we're going to subtract boys. So we're going to take girls minus boys, or 24 minus 18. And our answer would be there are 6 fewer boys than girls. You might also see something where they would say, Susie had 36 cookies. She gave Cindy 4 cookies. Billy 3 cookies. And Tommy 5 cookies. How many cookies does Susie have left? This is a problem where there are multiple steps. And the thing that I really like about math is that there are so many different ways that you can approach it. We can set it up where we think and draw a picture where we have Susie at first. She had 36 at first. Then we could say, well, she gave Cindy 4. So after she gave Cindy 4, she had 32. She gave Billy 3. And 32 minus 3 is 29. Then she gave Tommy 5. She would have 24 left. That's one way that you could do the problem. You might also say, let's see how many she gave away altogether. So she gave 4 to Billy, 4 to Cindy, 3 to Billy, and 5 to Tommy. We could add those. 4 plus 3 is 7, plus 5 is 12. So we know she gave away 12 altogether. Then we could have said 36, which was the amount she had originally. We could subtract that 12, and we would have had 24 left. Notice we get the same answer either way. And it's kind of nice to know that depending on how your brain works, how God made you, you might think of it to figure out how many did she give away altogether, or you might like to do 3 different subtraction steps and have it make sense to you, because it makes sense to different people in different ways. Let's take some time now to think about multiplication. But before we think about multiplication, we really need to think about what exactly is multiplication. Multiplication is adding the same number over and over and over again. So sometimes you might hear your teacher say that multiplication is repeated addition. If I had 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2, I would say 2 plus 2 is 4 plus 2 is 6 plus 2 is 8, or I could have said, let me write this for you so you see it, 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2. I could add that, or I could have said there's 1, 2, 3, 4 2's, and 4 times 2 is 8. 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2 is 8. So repeated addition is the same thing as multiplication. So if you are ever adding a bunch of the same number, you can use multiplication. And some of the words that you might see is times. You might see double, which would mean to multiply it by 2. You might see triple, which you might have heard from triplets, have 3 babies. Triple would be multiplied by 3. Product is the answer that you get when you multiply. Multiplied by is another thing that you might hear. The word of is a big one, especially when we start working with fractions. You'll see of quite a bit. So you might want to, if you've printed this out, you might want to highlight that so that you remember that one. You might also see increased by a factor, because when we're multiplying, the 2 numbers we're multiplying are called factors, and our answer is called our product. If we see twice, that means times 2, and a multiple is a number that you get when you multiply. A multiple of 6 would be 12, 18, 24. So when we are using multiplication for a story problem, we would want to look at if I had baked, let's say I baked cookies. Here on my cookie sheet, I have cookies on my cookie sheet. And I could look at this and I could say, I have 3 rows of 4. And instead of counting cookies, I could say 3 times 4 is 12. Now I'm afraid we're going to lose each other in just a minute because my recording can only be so long, so I will continue this on another tape.